Hey everybody, welcome to the Unreal Engine live stream. I'm Alexander Pascal, your Unreal Engine Community Manager, and joining me today, Aaron McLaren, who's a floating head right here. You can wave at the people, they can see you, even though you can't see them.
Hi.
Alright, so first off, let's go ahead and jump right into the news. And here. Oh, it's jumping around. Sorry.
Get it together, Alex.
I know, I'm sorry. News. That was in the right spot earlier, it jumped. So, first things first, we're announcing that the samples from the Learn tab that you've all kind of come to know and love, the older ones specifically, we're going to be sunsetting them. There's now like a need for new rich content, and keeping those up to date was kind of holding us back from that. So we're going to still have them, but they will be available to you through the wiki, and all the newer stuff will be still available. But specifically, the memory game, Blackjack, Swing Ninja, and Tappy Chicken will be available for download through the wiki from now on, so that it's going to just kind of free us up to have a little more time to focus on making some new stuff for you guys, and while still maintaining, still allowing you to have access to it. Cool. So that's the first part, and here's what the page is. It's just the category is called Example Projects, and I believe Adam is posting links to these things because he is awesome. Thank you, buddy. Into the chat. All right. So Example Projects right now, like I said, it's just these four, and it's going to really give us a chance to get more stuff out there. Cool. Next up. Unreal Engine is coming to the Central European Games Conference. That's CEGC, not to be confused with ECGC, which is a different conference. But it should include Jess Hyder and Alexi, and there's going to be an awful lot of talks going on here. Here you go. We've got several of them coming up. Alexi, Martin, Jiri, who I'm probably mispronouncing his name, Marco and Renee will all be giving presentations. I believe Jess is also going to be around, so go check it out. If you're anywhere in the, it's Vienna area, that'll be on Wednesday. In Vienna on Wednesday the 17th. Please come attend, meet our people, say hi. It's all going to be good fun, Nice. And finally. See, I'm telling you, it's messing with me today. Whoa, there it goes. Okay. Finally, and it also jumped. Very odd. I'm so sorry. There you go. Finally, the Preview 5 has been released with all of these new fixes. So, it's a whole new report, just tons and tons and tons of great new changes, and come onto the forums, check it out. Adam's going to link you again. And should have, also at the bottom, you'll want to check out the known issues list and to report all bugs that you find in the Answer Hub. Thank you all who've been participating in this. We are getting a lot of really amazing feedback, and it's really helping us lock this down and make it, really special. All right, that's all that we have on the news today, but we have Community Spotlight. So I'm going to jump over to the Answer Hub off screen really fast. And refresh the page so we know exactly who is at the top of the list right now. All right. Today's top karma earners, or this week's top karma earners, are Shadow River, Felipe Tessero, and Anatoly. I'm going to go with Anatoly. I'm terrible at pronouncing some of your usernames, and I apologize for that. But Felipe and Anatoly, I believe you guys are both new. Shadow River, you're of course recurring. We all know you, buddy. So thank you all. Again, these numbers are getting higher and higher, so if you want to get this badge, you've got to really get in there and fight with these guys, eh? All right. On to Community Spotlight. Back to the main monitor. Alrighty. So, Sky City VR was made by Side Effects Software, and this was just released a couple of days ago. But this is a really kind of it's a really impressive example of what you can do with procedural generation using Houdini and UE4 through their plugin and all that. And they've made just a gorgeous city. And Shelly, why don't we roll that trailer really quick? As you can see, it's very sci-fi, and you might look at it and go, well, this is the kind of cityscape I'm used to seeing, which is nice, but consider how easy it was made because it is procedurally created through their tool. I'm actually like such a huge fan of sci-fi cities in general, so I'm probably going to have to play with this just for my own sake.
The authorities have issued a citywide warning telling us to be prepared to evacuate if needed. Besides that, they're not telling us anything else. I have no idea why we might need to evacuate at all. I think their vague warnings are making people more scared than they should be.
Flying under the bridge. See, yeah, you can get all the way down here, and they've got roads properly made, buildings all made, and it even has little crosswalks. I don't know if you could see that, but there was even a little crosswalk made. So, yeah, that's just the power of Houdini and UE4 working together. Very exciting. All right. And I normally give credit to the person who made it, but it's just a super massive list. So, sorry, I'm just going to skip it, and we're going to say project lead Ben Mears and the side effects team. Congrats, that's very cool. All right, and next up we have another great wiki article that recently popped up. This one comes from Zeno Egger, and it's a GitHub desktop manager explanation for you. So some of us who are newer to the programming side of things might want to actually have, put GitHub on our desktop somewhere it's accessible and easy to get a hold of. So this is just a basic explanation of that, how to get started with it and how to just do the very basics, which for people like me, when I was first getting started in this, I didn't have a whole lot, and I had to bother a lot of people who knew what they were doing and ask them how to set up a lot of things. So this is very cool set of just instructions on how to get the most out of it and how to set it up properly. Cool. And finally, from Mr. Behemoth, who we mentioned on the not the last stream, but the stream before last for the Game Jam like special mentions. This was one of my personal favorites too, but it just didn't end up winning. It's called Interactivity: The Interactive Experience. And what Mr. Behemoth has done is gone in and added in more endings, cleaned it up, really polished it. And so I wanted to throw it out there and show you all that you should do this. You should go out and just every time you've made a Game Jam thing and go, oh well, maybe I should polish it up and finish it. That was odd. Sorry about that. I got an audio thing. So was that you?
That was me. Sorry.
This guy. All right. So if you're a person who's been in a game jam and you've made something and you think it's cool, but you didn't end up getting a chance to finish it. I'd love to highlight it and talk to you about what all you've done with it. So, cool. Thanks a lot, Mr. Behemoth. Very cool. Alrighty. So that's the last of our community spotlight. On to our feature presentation. Hey, Aaron, how are you today?
Doing good. Sorry about the audio glitch. I actually clicked on our Twitch and it started playing you through Twitch through my screen.
So you created like a loop trying to watch us, watch you.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder what I look like on the Twitch stream.
Yeah. No, it's alright. So today, audio, new features, brand spanking new, and these are for 410 and 411, right?
These are 411.
411.
Already out.
Well, yeah.
So, basically, I guess I'll just give you a quick, introduction to myself, my background, how long I've been at Epic, and sort of the general goals that I have as the Epic audio programmer. Mm-hmm. So, I have a background in composition and sound design. I am really particularly interested in procedural music and algorithmic music and stuff like that. So I'm hoping to bring those kinds of features to UE4 eventually. Mm-hmm. I was hired at Epic with a sort of mandate to, get our audio engine competitive with with other game engines. There's some very high priority, low level kind of things like getting the audio engine on its own thread, getting a platform independent mixer running so that we can do really exciting things like dynamic DSPs, getting users to be able to, create effect chains. Like, imagine how awesome it would be if you could, from UE4, like say new C++ class, inherit from, iVoice effect, and then write your own plugin, or easily have vendors make their own plugins for audio effects and all that kind of stuff. That's the sort of longer term vision that I have for the engine, and I'm working on that. So the features I'm going to present today are sort of more leaf-oriented features. They're primarily just trying to find places in the current audio engine and the current audio engine layout that would help our audio team here at Epic make Paragon, a game that's coming out very soon, sound as good as it can in the least amount of time possible. Basically, it's like any game developer. It's like, okay, we've got 6 months. What can we do that's least risk but coolest sort of feature? So these things I'm going to present today aren't those like really amazing, blue sky sort of things that I am working on. It's just that's not what these are. So I think a lot of the forum questions that I've seen are like sort of, is this going to be an announcement of all the exciting stuff that I've heard rumors about? And no. But these are going to be really cool features that you'll be able to use very soon in 4.11. And I think a lot of people who've been using UE4 for audio implementation should be excited to see some new features, because I don't think we've had audio features in UE4 for a while. I've only been working at Epic for about a year, and so these features are kind of like about 6 months of work. Kind of started them on during the summer. So the 4 things I'm going to talk about, and there's other features too in 4.11. These are just sort of the big things that I think would be kind of cool in the demo. The 4 things are stereo spatialization. That's 3D spatialization of stereo assets. I'll talk more about what that means if you don't know what that means. But I think a lot of game sound designers in other engines are used to being able to take a stereo asset and hear it. And there's a lot of really great, powerful sound design that you can do with that feature. Another one is a focus feature. Basically, the focus feature is doing parameter modulation based on listener geometry, like listener transform relative to emitter transform.
So like literally where I am versus where the sound is coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the listener is like sort of the viewpoint of where the audio is spatialized from. And so these are sort of parameter modulations based off of that. And it's really useful for a number of applications, like prioritizing sounds that are in front of you. Like if you see an effect or some skill or something that happens in front of you, you want to have those sounds have higher priority or higher chance of playing than sounds behind you. Another one is a similar kind of related, similar feature is a more advanced concurrency control. So UE4 has supported sound concurrency limitation, but per asset instance. Like for example, a sound cue or a sound wave might have a concurrency limit. So if you played that exact sound wave, it would limit itself to that. But this is sort of a more advanced feature, and I'll explain that in more detail. And then finally, this is something that was, I was originally not going to do, but I just felt compelled because of the, it was like one of the #1 most requested feature on forums, and people were going to great lengths to work around the fact that this feature didn't exist, and that's occlusion. It's not one of the most advanced occlusion implementations that you could imagine for games, and there's some vendors that I'm working with for plugins, like for example the Impulsonic guys. I think they might be listening. So check out their plugin that they're working on. They'll have like a really nice, very fancy occlusion and sound propagation model. This feature is a basically inexpensive, bare bones raycast based occlusion system, but it's a really good feature, and it sounds really nice. And it'll help, prevent the issue of like hearing footsteps and sounds through walls as if they're, the wall doesn't exist, that kind of thing. So that's the overview. I'll quickly jump right in. I guess let me do a screen share.
Yeah, screen share with me.
I'm kind of new to Skype, so I apologize if everything falls apart. Okay, so I'm going to screen share this thing. All right, can you guys see what's going on here?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I think, Shelly, we good?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Seems good.
Okay, cool. So the first thing I want to talk about is the stereo spatialization. I've got a little graphic that should be coming out that I made for our release notes. So I'll just pop it up so you can just sort of see visually what I'm talking about if you're new to the idea of stereo spatialization. So basically here would be the listener position, and this could be, the listener orientation could be at any direction here. And then the emitter, which would be like sort of a sound actor playing a sound or something out in 3D space, if it plays a stereo asset, it plays it normally for a mono asset. It would just play it from the emitter position. It would be spatialized according to the listener and emitter orientation that way. So stereo spatialization, it takes the left channel of the stereo asset and the right channel of the stereo asset and spreads them perpendicularly to the plane between the emitter and the listener. So this is 90 degrees here.
Wow.
And there's a parameter here that you can set on your asset, or actually on a sound attenuation settings, which I'll show you in a second, that basically will determine how far the left and right channel are spread. So incidentally, just by default, the further away you get, the smaller this apparent spread would be relative to the listener. So as you get further away, this is just going to naturally collapse to sounding like a mono asset. And I've played with the idea of maybe allowing you to set this stereo spread dynamically and things like that. These are sort of like add-on features that I'm thinking about adding. But right now, the first implementation is you just set the 3D stereo spread and be able to hear this. Now, the cool thing about this is that stereo assets are a kind of better approximation of sound radiation. Basically, like when you play it, when a sound happens in real life, it doesn't just come from a single point, right? There's an actual, literally sound radiation that has like a little pattern that spreads out in space. And this is sort of like most things in games, another smoke and mirror sort of thing. But when you have a stereo asset recording, it's modeling that sound radiation better than if it was a mono recording. So you can actually create really interesting three-dimensional effects through stereo assets. This combined with things like the binaural HRTF for VR. By the way, this works great in VR. I mean, just by itself, it surprised me that how good it sounded in VR. But this combined with like an HRTF sort of at the emitter location with maybe some extra spread, I think I found combats sort of the hyperlocalization issue that anybody doing sound design in VR has been experiencing, where you're just like, oh my gosh, it's so well spatialized now with this like HRTF binaural spatialization technology. Now I want a little bit of spread, so this is one technique that I think will be very useful in VR. So real quick, how do you set that? Is you just classic sound sound attenuation. You create a sound attenuation object. I'll just make a new one right here, and basically you set this new parameter here, 3D stereo spread, the distance between left and right stereo channels when stereo assets are spatialized, and it defaults to 0. So if you create a stereo asset and just play it with a sound attenuation object, it'll just basically sum the left and right as a mono asset. But here you can set in game world units the spread, like that diagram that I just showed you. So basically this is just the sound. If you're familiar with how audio works in UE4, basically this is how you spatialize things in 3D audio. You collect, attenuate, spatialize. You'd set your attenuation curve, the type of attenuation shape you want, and stuff like that. And any stereo asset playing with this sound attenuation settings will get this stereo spread.
All right.
So the next feature I want to talk about is the sound focus feature. So the focus feature. I actually have a demo of the stereo spreads here.
I have a quick question for you, Aaron.
Can you guys hear this?
Front left.
I don't know how well.
I can hear that.
I think the
Yeah.
microphone is mono, so.
Front left.
But anyways, it's probably not very compelling through the stream.
No, I can hear it fine. Sounds good. Whoa. Whatever
If
that
you
was,
heard
though, was
this in
terrifying.
stereo, you'd be able to hear that the demo asset I have, where it's saying left in one channel, right in one channel, would be very clear about the stereo asset. You'll hear it panning around according to the stereo spread. I'm gonna just call it a loss on trying to demo this through a stream of a stream. But anyways, so let's talk about the focus feature. So the focus feature, like I briefly mentioned earlier, is a way to apply various parameter modulations based on the listener angle. And I also have an awesome little diagram that I put together for the release notes. So for this, it's important, the forward direction of the listener orientation. So that's what this indicates here. This is the direction that the listener is facing. So basically, the new feature allows you to specify two key parameters here: focus azimuth and non-focus azimuth, and they're measured from the forward direction. It's really important because there's some confusion if the focus azimuth is this angle or if it's this, non-focus is this angle, that kind of thing. It's measured from the forward because that's actually how azimuth is defined. So what this means is sounds that are in this region, basically it's mirrored here. The focus azimuth is a mirrored parameter. Any sound in this region is going to be defined as being, quote, in focus. Any sound that plays in this region is going to be, quote, out of focus or non-focus. Any in these two regions on the side would be sort of, I call it the transition region. So it would be somewhere between focus and non-focus. Any parameter modulation you set for these two regions will be linearly interpolated between focus and non-focus. I played with the idea of adding more complexity where you could control the interpolation, so it's not just linear. Maybe you want to do something else, but linear is a good first pass on this feature. You can eventually add more complexity later. So with this sort of picture in mind, I'll show you how you'll set it. Again, I decided to add this to the attenuation setting structure here. So basically, if you want to enable listener focus on a particular setting, attenuation setting, you just click this button. It'll enable these as options. This is the focus azimuth parameter and the non-focus azimuth. I just defaulted it to 30 and 60 because whatever, that sounded reasonable. But these are limited between 0 and 180 degrees. These are the parameters that you can currently control with the focus setting. I was thinking about, again, adding more complexity to this, having, maybe arbitrary parameter modulation or whatever you want, those kinds of things. But again, this is sort of first pass on the feature, and these are the three parameters that seem the most useful to us on Paragon, and I think is generally useful for licensees. So I'm going to start on the bottom of these, just to explain what they mean, because they're kind of easiest to weirdest down here. So the first one is obviously volume attenuation. So basically, you could use this setting to make sounds that are in front of the listener quiet, if you wanted to have the focus volume attenuation 0, for example. Or you can make the sounds behind you quieter, to maybe emulate sort of having the effect of on stereo output or whatever, like something's behind you, it'll get a little bit quieter, that kind of thing. Another one is priority scale. So this will actually scale the priority of a sound, which I'll just quickly show you. It's very easy to set on a sound, so I'll just load this asset. So down here, you'll see priority. This defaults to 1, and I believe it goes up to 100. There's a reason why I ended up deciding on having a cap for that. It's a little lower level detail. But anyways, it's a priority on the sound, and the priority is important for voice stealing, which I'll explain a little bit more detail if you're not familiar with that when I talk about sound concurrency, which is the next feature I'm going to talk about. But basically, the priority of a sound will get scaled according to its angle. And you can set this way up higher. So if you want something to be way higher priority if it's in front of you, you can set that. And then finally, this last one is the distance. You have a focus distance scale and non-focus distance scale. This one is basically a sound that you can basically control the effective distance of the sound from the listener in terms of how it goes through its attenuation setting. So basically, these things up here, radius, fall-off distance, all that stuff. The real-world distance will be scaled by this parameter and then goes through the attenuation settings up here. So if the effect of this is that you can, with very severe, distance scaling, you can make sounds that are across the map sound as if they're a lot closer. There's a lot of details and complexity implementation of this because we do a lot of culling based on distance. So a lot of this stuff has to be calculated before we decide the culling and things like that. But the primary use case for this might be, and this is why this feature was motivated, was for like modes of a game where you might be flying from a disembodied head and you might see action across the map, but you want to be able to hear as if you were closer so that everything just doesn't sound like it's a million miles away, that kind of a thing. And of course, there's a sort of related thing to this. You may not, obviously this is a static parameter, so you may not actually want to use this for a sound for one type of game mode, but when you switch to a different type of game mode, you want to actually start using it. And so I created a global scale, the ability in Blueprints to globally scale. Let's see, I think I have it in this level. So just give a sec. So basically, that's this Blueprint function, set global listener focus parameters. So what this will do is sort of scale all sound attenuation settings focus parameters by this So you could, for example, flip in blueprints to spectator mode or some floaty mode, and then say, oh, actually, things that are in focus to the listener now, are going to be 20% closer, or 80% closer actually than they were. This is like a scale on the distance. So if something is like 100 meters away, now it's 0.2 times 100 meters away. And you can then, of course, unset it when you're done with that mode. Okay, so that's focus. The next thing I wanted to talk about was sound concurrency. So I feel like it's probably good to talk about this in the context of the way sound concurrency worked before. Before on your sound assets, you would set down here in a concurrency thing, like basically the max number of sounds and then a concurrency rule to override, to resolve if more sounds are playing than have been allowed. The problem with that method is that it limited it per sound asset type. So there would be like a sound wave or a sound cue. Sound cue could, for example, have down here a similar kind of a thing. So the result is that people were creating elaborate implementation methods to like figure out how to limit concurrency. Like, you don't want to flood your voice counts with like a bajillion ambient sounds, and so you create all these different ambient things to like. It was really difficult to manage concurrency basically because of this weird limitation. So, and one of the primary things in any game is figuring out what the most important sounds are to play and give sound designers the ability to control like what they deem is the most important sound. And so rather than doing it per asset, I was like, how about we make an asset type, a new type of asset that is effectively like a concurrency group, and then any asset can then go and add themselves to that concurrency group, and then any asset will then be limiting themselves. So you could have, say, like 10 dialogue sounds that play through the same concurrency group and limit their mutual concurrency. This is great for dialogue because, for example, mouths can only really generate one sound at a time. You can't breathe, grunt, and talk at the same time. It's a classic issue in games where you have like characters talking over themselves, and it's terrible, right? So in that use case, you could say, for example, with this new concurrency group feature, you could say all dialogue lines have a limit of one concurrency and override themselves according to the priority. So you could say like a grunt is sort of higher priority than breathing. Breathing is probably the lowest priority, and the actual dialogue line is higher priority. And then you could have some dialogue lines that are higher priority than other dialogue lines. Those kinds of things. And so you can still get the old behavior, and I'll show you the concurrency asset in a second. But you still get the old behavior if you want to just limit it per instance, because that is potentially a very useful thing to do still. So I didn't want to like remove that. Also, there's the issue of backwards compatibility. So if you have a project that was using this concurrency feature, it'll automatically update and do this. Basically, you'll find this is clicked on all your assets automatically, and there'll be overrides. So it defaulted before to 16, so it still defaults to 16. But you could say like this asset instance is only allowed to be 8, and it'll set the old priority or the old concurrency resolution rule according to the 4 that existed before. Which leads me, I'm going to show you this right here, is there's 3 real additional components to this. One is limit to owner. Limit to owner means that you could use the same concurrency group for, like, back to the dialogue example, you could just create one concurrency group that's for all your dialogue, and then when you play a sound on your actor, you would use that concurrency group, but then with this limit to owner check. What that means is that the dialogue asset will limit its concurrency resolution for that actor. So that way you don't have to create like a concurrency group for each actor. You don't have to be like concurrency group actor A, concurrency group actor B, concurrency group actor C, and like manage a bajillion concurrency assets. So here you can say like actually limit its owner, anything that plays on this owner will limit its concurrency. So that way, 2 different actors can play dialogue lines in the same concurrency group at the same time. They can talk to each other, not limit each other, but within their own owner world, limit their concurrency. The other things I added is 2 new concurrency resolution rules. One is a stop lowest priority. This works with the focus feature nicely. Basically, if, like, let's say if the max count was 8, and you had a bunch of sounds playing on it, you would say, actually, if a 9th sound tries to play, stop the lowest priority sound and let the new sound play. And then finally, the newest one is the stop quietest, where quietest is defined as the the sound with the lowest volume product. So this isn't doing like a real-time DSP analysis, like envelope following thing. It's just like all the different gain stages. It waits till all of that is evaluated, and then will stop the quietest sound in that group. That is if more sounds are trying to play in that concurrency group than are allowed. And then finally, this one is an interesting feature addition. It was requested by one of our collaborators over at Chair. When I was describing and pitching this feature to them, he was like, it would be really cool if we could actually like scale the volume of sounds based on the generation of that sound in the concurrency groups. In other words, like the very first sound played won't get a volume scale. Let's say this was set to 0.9. So the very first sound won't get any volume scale. Now there's two sounds playing in it. So the second sound, the second sound, the newest sound won't get a volume scale, but the oldest sound, the one that was first played, will now get a volume scale of 0.9. And then another sound plays. That first sound will get 0.9 times 0.9. The second sound will get 0.9. The newest sound will get 1.0. So basically, it's kind of an exponential decay based on the age of the sound in the concurrency group. And it's great for visual effects sort of sounds that, you know, like you're playing fire, a little water burble, and you kind of want to duck the older sounds as new sounds kind of play. So it was a good idea and kind of a subtle sort of thing, and playing with it, it turns out to be really cool for certain applications. And of course, you make the sound concurrency asset. It's a new type of asset. You say sound concurrency, and you just open it up, and it has those settings that you saw for the override. And then you just can include it you just open up the level blueprint again, so you can see, basically it's down here, it's like, so play sound at location, spawn sound at location. These are the old functions that you've seen before. Now there's a new concurrency setting, so you can override it in blueprints if you want to dynamically switch which concurrency setting you're using. Okay, so the final thing I wanted to talk about, hopefully I'm good on time, is occlusion. So occlusion is one of the most requested features in the game, or in UE4, and people were using, just give you an idea of like sort of what people were trying to compensate, is this sort of a cone thing. So like you can actually attenuate sounds based on a cone. So the direction of the sound's facing, you can attenuate the sound so you only hear it when you walk in front of the sound. So like ambient sounds, they were like arranging in rooms and making sure the cone was only projected so that you could only hear that sound when you walked in a room. And there's all this stuff that people were doing. It was very, very difficult to just do something simple like friggin' not hear a sound if it's behind a wall, or make it sound muffled, you know, the classic thing that lots of games support. So basically that's what we support now. And the way to use that is I decided again to add this to attenuation structure rather than creating a new asset. Although this is getting pretty heavy, this might someday get broken up because it's getting pretty intense in the sound attenuation settings object. Basically, you just say enable occlusion, checkbox this, and you'll see occlusion low pass filter frequency. Oh, there's something I want to mention about this, by the way. But basically, it defaults to 20,000 in hertz. So in other words, it really won't have much of an effect by default. And then you can set it down to, say, like 500 hertz, which would be a really severe effect, or 6,000 or whatever. And then this is a nice little subtle thing. A lot of occlusion features I've seen in other games don't add this. And I feel like these two things combined are really powerful. And that is a low-pass filter with an option for a volume attenuation. So as it gets behind a wall, it'll actually also get quieter. A lot of games just do a low-pass filter. And then finally, since it's kind of a lame implementation detail of the implementation method, it's basically a binary state. You're either occluded or you're not occluded. And for most cases, that's awesome, but you kind of want to make sure that it doesn't instantly go from occluded to non-occluded. And so there's kind of a little bit of an interpolation time, and you can control that. So if you really want some kind of weird effect, if you want, you can set this to be really high, and it'll go like as it becomes occluded, but you probably don't want to do that. So keep it, I think 0.1 is what I tune because I think it sounds pretty decent at that rate. A more advanced occlusion system might include, and like I said earlier, is that this is kind of like a very basic occlusion implementation. A more advanced one might model obstruction or other kinds of propagation related audio filter effects. But this is a nice, decent, cheap occlusion system. Actually, the one that's currently checked in 411 does a synchronous raycast, but that's because when I first implemented it, asynchronous raycasts weren't perfectly supported, but now they are, and I just implemented it in the dev stream, and I'm probably going to implement it over to 411, assuming that the async traces work on 411, so it'll be even cheaper to be able to do occlusion on 411. And a little quick demo. Let's see if this is experimental. I apologize for the editor sound, but let's see. So you hear occluded, not occluded. So it's just basic pink noise. See it? Yay! This wall is blocking it. Okay. So those are the 4 features. I guess I can stop screen sharing it. I don't know how to do that. How do I stop screen sharing?
Whoa. Look at that. It's like me in layers. Wow. All right, cool. Yeah.
All right.
So I didn't realize that Shelly had cut off my mic, and I was like sitting here like an idiot trying to ask you questions. She's just over here like tee hee hee.
Probably seems really rude just bowling over you.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess you can't hear me or something. Should have dawned on me. All right. Thank you so much, Aaron, by the way. And yeah, these are 411 features. These are what's hot and new.
Again, there's other things that are coming out on 411 that are kind of more subtle and less demo worthy, but there's a lot of work, optimizations, figuring out better ways to do volume voice prioritization. One thing, for example, somebody mentioned this on the forums. Still don't support virtual voices. This is on the forum, just real fast.
We don't support
virtual voices for people who don't know.
I thought you said virtual boys, and I was about to be like, yeah, of course we don't support virtual. I mean, I wish.
You can have as many virtual boys in your game as you want, but the audio virtual voice, it's a classic feature that's supported in a lot of engines. We still don't support it. That's going to be something that will be supported in the new work I'm doing. But I made the problem a little bit better. So 411 will basically play 0 volume sounds if there's room in the voice pool. So basically, if you play, like the classic issue in UE4 is like you have a looping sound that's playing something, you walk out of range, it becomes 0 volume, and then it stops the sound, and you walk back in range, and it restarts the sound from scratch. So now it'll actually just keep playing the sound if there's, like, by default UE4 supports 32 simultaneous voices. The majority of the time, you're only going to be actually hearing maybe 8 or 9 sounds, right? So if you have a sound that goes to 0 volume and there's still room in that queue, it'll just keep playing the sound. So it's kind of like a virtual voice. It's like a quasi-virtual voice. So it really alleviates a lot of the issues that people have. And I feel like if you're up to 32 sounds or more, depending on your game and sound design, virtual voice feature becomes less important because you already have so much audio going on. It doesn't really matter as much that a sound is being tracked, on a back channel, keeping track of its, play location and things like that. Like in those cases, often just restarting the sound is not that big of a deal because there's a lot of sounds going on. So hopefully that is something that addresses the sort of virtual voice, request and other things like that.
Yeah, I think a few people might have mentioned something along those lines.
Yeah.
Now we do have a few questions from the forums, which you've seen and all that, and a couple that have come in during chat. So I believe you have access to the doc.
Yeah. Let me.
Now the first one, you said we've got an answer for this one. What kind of spatialization technology / library are you using?
So all of the audio in UE4 is basically mostly hand rolled. We do have pretty deep implementations, like per platform for certain types of things. Like basically the mixer is we don't have a platform independent mixer. We depend on each platform. This is the current engine, of course. Each platform's mixing technology. We create like a platform voice, add it to like a thing, and let the platform black box mix all that stuff. But other than that, like we kind of basically hand roll all that stuff. So the stereo spatialization is kind of, we didn't use a library. For the other stuff, I don't know, the second layer of this question is probably talking about all of the spatialization tech vendors out there in the world making cool spatialization tech, like Oculus SDK, Visisonics, Impulsonics, all these kinds of people. So I actually implemented the Oculus SDK HRT. It was like the first thing I did when I started at Epic last year, before GDC. So GDC had it, but basically I try to do it in a way that other people can extend it. So in other words, it's like a generic interface for spatialization plugin, and indeed, spatialization vendors have been using that to tap into 3D spatialization. So, like I said, I'm working with Impulsonics. They've got an awesome plugin that they're making that will do really crazy, awesome, super advanced spatialization tech. And then, of course, Oculus, but I'm maintaining the Oculus one. And then Visisonics, I've been also working with them. These are just people that are kind of making plugins, and I'm sure there's others that have seen that and have been extending the spatialization plugin interface. Cool. Again, for the new engine, I want to make that sort of thing, to sort of design the audio engine from scratch. It's very easy to extend and, you know, let people go nuts, making all kinds of experimental things. Like, it'd be cool if UE4 becomes the sort of place for audio researchers to experiment with audio technology with the full game engine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that answers the next question about whether or not you're going to be working with Oculus Audio at all, because
so
you're
the
the man.
HRT thing it's been in. We've been using it. We used it in our Showdown demo.
Yeah.
And again, there's the stereo spatialization stuff works in VR. It's technically not this. I mean, it's not the same thing. It's using the old school, you know, pairwise panning algorithm for spatialization, but it sounds surprisingly good in VR. It's weird. Like, when I first put it on with the HMD, I was like, holy man, this is amazing. Like, better than I expected. I think it is. Mm-hmm. So audio streaming support. So we actually do. I didn't implement it.
So hang on. Not to totally interrupt you, but yeah, if we don't say the question, everyone's just be like, what?
I read the question. I didn't say it.
Yeah. So
the
the question.
What about streaming support, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about streaming audio support?
Yeah, we'll be able to read external files and play audio chosen by the user. So, that second part is a little bit of a subtle question. So, audio streaming technically means streaming a raw audio file off disk. And the idea of that is you don't load the whole asset into memory. So, audio streaming actually has been supported in UE4 for a while. I didn't look back how far back it goes. It's like, I don't know, maybe 2 years. I don't know. It's been in there for a while, but it's hidden under an experimental feature. So you have to go to the project settings, go like show experimental features, and then when you enable show audio streaming option, you'll be able to see on sound assets a checkbox that says stream this. And when I first started, I didn't know that existed either. I was like,
it's just a checkbox.
And audio streaming, and then I mentioned to somebody, and they're like, oh, we actually support it. And I was like, why don't we turn that to not experimental? So it's on my list to make it not experimental. The reason why it's experimental is I think there's some things that need to be worked out with it, but we're using it on Paragon now, and it works fine. So yes, we have streaming, but it's still experimental because use at your risk, at your own risk.
Okay.
Oh, but the second part of that is do we support play audio chosen by the user? So when I was the audio programmer at Guild Wars, we had this feature that a lot of people really loved, which is like a playlist thing, so people could override their game music with their own music, and so they could hear, you know, when they were going through the world, you could hear, you know, whatever, Lady Gaga or something. I don't know.
So it's sort of like when you're playing GTA and you turn on that one radio station that just looks through your music library and plays your own music. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
So I'm assuming that's what they're saying. I'm not. I mean, otherwise, it's the engine always plays audio chosen by the user. That's how you implement audio UE4. But for front-facing stuff, no. There probably isn't support for that by default. So as a game, you'd have to figure out how to do that yourself. And it would probably use the streaming thing. And it would be pretty difficult to do that, like using the UE4 tech as it is. But maybe that's something we'll add for future support.
Oh, right. Now, these next ones came in. Oh, okay. So these next ones came in during chat. So I'm not sure which ones of these you're going to be able to answer. Feel free to. Yeah,
I mean, do you want me to ask myself? So the question is, could we get some clarification around DX12 multi-adapter support? I have no idea what that is.
Oh, okay, so we've asked the wrong guy.
In fact, I'd like some clarification on it myself at this point.
What is that? All right.
The next question is, would this system allow us to create an emulated SID chip type system with UE4?
Yep.
I don't know. First of all, I don't know exactly what system the question is referring to. I mean, it's the audio engine in UE4, so I guess if the system means audio engine, allow us to create an emulated SID chip type. Again, I don't know what the question is.
That one might just be a little bit off.
Maybe it would. Huh, like, well, maybe it would allow us. But I don't know what the question is, so I can't answer. And then the next question is, wouldn't turning your ear towards an audio source make it sound louder? Turning your ear towards an audio source make it sound louder in one channel. So I'm assuming that's related to the stereo spatialization feature. So maybe the graphic wasn't clear, or maybe obviously my demo was terrible because
No, it was really good actually.
well, I mean, like of the stereo spatialization thing. So if you recall back, maybe I could share my screen again, but if you recall the stereo geometry that I showed right off the bat was you saw the left and right channel. So that's not like permanently oriented in one direction. It's always reorients itself perpendicular. So the left and right channel will always be oriented such that the left is like what you expect. So as the sound pans around the listener, you can imagine the listener here, and then like say left and right, it will like always pan so that it's, you know, always oriented so that the left and right channel will always have a stereo spread. You won't hear like one channel closer to the listener than another.
Okay. So I got some clarification, and this would be why you'd never heard of it. The SID analog synth chip was in the Commodore 64. You guys tricked us. You tricked us into trying to legitimately answer that.
I totally know what he's talking about. Okay. But no, of course not.
No. I don't think that we plan on supporting that new Coleco thing.
Exactly.
Coming out. It's cool, but you know, it's
really
just
cool.
it's just not our engine.
So the new audio engine will have like, you know, some callbacks, and users can do crazy stuff.
You only get one.
Sorry. You'll be able to do whatever they want. It'll just be user callbacks into your own audio processing. So if you want to tap into that and pipe the audio to an SID chip or vice versa, you'll probably be able to do that. But that's, again, the new stuff.
All right, cool. All right, we're going to take this one last one here, you can see. And then I'm going to go on to all this game jam stuff that the chat won't stop talking about. All right.
So the last question is, using a box audio shape, will we be able to independently change the X, Y, and Z of the fall-off distance? We can change the radius, but I don't want to hear sounds from rooms above the floor I'm on. So that's UE4. This is actually kind of an interesting feature of UE4 when I first started, because I hadn't seen this in other game engines. But having like interesting attenuation shapes for the sound, like the cone, the cube, and those, rather than just assuming a sphere. So apparently the box shape doesn't let you specify X, Y, and Z independently. I don't see why I couldn't add that. Probably won't be 411 because I'm trying really hard to say no to new features so I can focus on doing the stuff that everyone really wants, which is the new audio engine, kind of like mixer and all that stuff. But if the question was asked and there's they have access to a programmer, I can show them probably how to do it. It'll probably be pretty straightforward to just expose extra parameters and pipe those down to the attenuation shape. So
cool. That's really helpful. All right, let's see. All right, so thank you so much. I had to initiate a couple of things over here. That's why I was a little incommunicado there. Thank you so much, Aaron. Feel free to chill out and stick around if you'd like. We're gonna announce something really cool, and then we're announcing the Game Jam theme. All right, so chat.
I'm gonna go jump on the forums and answer some questions.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
get programming, if that's okay.
Yeah. Why don't you go back to work? You go do that. Cool. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for being on with us, though.
Yeah, just ask me questions on Twitter or something if you have anything else too.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Peace.
Later.
Yep.
Boop, boop. All right. Cool. I'm going to close all that out real fast. All right, everybody. So I noticed that you're all kind of curious about this mysterious box that I have over here. So let's talk about this box for just one whole second. It's fancy. It's new. It's got logos and branding on it. It's black. It has white logo. It's nice. Melissa had these drafted up, but swag from the Game Jam will now come to you via this box. And they made a little farty noise. You had to laugh at it, didn't you?
Yes.
And on the inside, it's nice, blue, got the logo. You would receive a series of stickers, t-shirt, etc. But what I'm here to talk to you about is this thing here that's on the very bottom of the box. This is an Intel solid-state drive. It's from the 750 series. It plugs into a PCIe slot, and we'll be raffling off 4 of them during our 25th stream when we announce the winners. Anyone who participates can win. Here we go, Shelly. I'm going to try to hold it still so you can... there we go. So this thing is pretty impressive. I hadn't seen a hard drive that plugs into PCIe before, but SATA apparently just has some limitations, some serious limitations to it. So this will let you do a lot more, a lot faster. So 4 randomly given out to anyone on any team that has an actual valid entry in. So yeah, there we go. Get those lights going. So anyone can win this one, and we've got 3 more. So it's 4 in total. It's going to be awesome. So come on down and watch. We'll do it all live on the stream. You'll get it in the box like so. It fits so perfectly. We ordered the boxes and then they sent them to us. We're like, oh, it's perfect, isn't it? Look at that. So we can fit a shirt. It will also have things like stickers and whatnot. And so if you win, you'll get the box with all this. But if you get the raffle, you'll also have the Intel card. And let's see here. This is actually going to be an ongoing thing. So this is the first of many, and we're going to keep this up. We really have to say thank you so much to Intel, our sponsor partners in this. They're super awesome, and you can actually see, you laughing at the noise again, aren't you, Shelly? I hear you over there. And you can see, it's a little hard to tell from the camera angle, but they've got their Achievement Unlocked logo on there for their game developer program. It's very cool. So check it out. And all right. And the next thing that I'd like to say, oh, thank goodness, I actually have a guest. It's not all dead space. Thank you, buddy. And the other one that I have to announce, everyone who wins, and I am just so excited about this, is also going to be receiving, in addition to a t-shirt, a badge, the box with the various kinds of swag things in it, you'll also be receiving 1 year of Houdini Indie for all of your team, and that is going to include the full engine for it, and you can get that running with the plug-in. So just use the plug-in and you'll be able to jump right in and do a lot of very impressive, like you saw before in the video we showed during the community spotlight, procedurally generated stuff is very easy in Houdini, and it's pretty simple to use if you're trying to do something kind of big and expansive and you don't want to have to sit there and individually play stuff. So that's really cool. And so I'm going to tell, yeah, there we go. All right. So that's it. Let's announcing the theme. Oh boy. All right. Shelly, are you ready? Because I'm kind of ready. All right. It's one hit wonder. That's right. February Game Jam theme, one hit wonder. So interpret that however you like. Maybe you're some guy from a band who got famous for one thing, or maybe it's just that there's only one thing that you can hit and that determines everything. But it's just whatever you want it to be, man. Like, I want to see your interpretation of this. So good luck. It starts now. It ends midnight, February 14th, morning of February 15th. So we already have the submission thread up, and I'm gonna make sure that it gets, gosh, I'm just so excited for this one, guys. It's gonna be fun. So throw in everything you got, get your teams together, rally your troops. I want to see the best. Shelly, don't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Shelly wants to see it. Cool.
Show me what you got.
Yeah, show me what you got. All right, guys. Good luck. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next Tuesday when there is the tanks tutorial on how tanks versus zombies is kind of what I've dubbed it, but how to build a tank game with zombies. Cool. And it's C++ with Lauren and Richard Hinckley. So we'll see you guys all then. Thank you again. Have fun.